Hi, welcome, congratulations, you've got a new job, you have a new city, you're going and living alone on your own, and or maybe you're living with your parents, doesn't really matter. What we are going to cover is how to make a budget. So let us say you have got a letter from your company saying this much is your CTC, and you divide that by 12 and say, oh, I've got a CTC of 4 lakhs, so, or let's say you got a CTC of 6 lakhs, and you think you're going to get a check of 50,000 rupees a month. The answer is no, you're not going to get a check of 50,000. First of all, Mr. Modi gets paid first, so the tax is deducted. At 6 lakhs there will be some TDS. Let us assume that is 10% TDS. So about 5 lakh 40 is what is the tax, the post-tax salary. Also understand that some provident fund will get cut, some of your medical which you are supposed to get, you will get it in a lump sum whenever you make the claim. So there is a difference between a CTC and a take-home pay. So don't think, oh, the company has cheated you by not giving you a check of 50,000. Suppose the take-home check you have got is 38,500. The difference, or maybe 36,000, whatever is the amount that you get, the gap can be explained. Step 1, understand how that gap happens. That gap happens because you have to ask somebody isme kya hai, and that you get in a pay slip. So you've got your pay slip, you know what is your take home pay. Now start budgeting. The cap for rent should be in the region of 30%. It looks very difficult, especially in metros, especially if you want to live in the better locality. Let's say you've got a job in Bombay, in Lower Parel. You would want to look for a place somewhere nearby. You don't want to stay very far away. And of course, if you have a parental home in Santa Cruz, that may be ideal. You're not really too much bothered about rent. But assuming that you are from a different city, then you will look for accommodation. You will look for accommodation slightly far away because the rents are lower. The other way to reduce rents is, of course, to do a chamari, stay with a couple of friends, and if one of them can cook, great. Because the second expense we'll talk about is food. So if 2-3 of you can stay together, or 4 can stay together, if the landlord allows it, if the society allows it, it's not very easy for young boys and girls to get accommodation. So whatever, given your limitations, try to live within that 30% cap of your take-home salary. So whatever it is, that should be your first thing. So that will be the biggest pop will soon be tax. But right now at this stage of a 40,000, 50,000 rupee income, it may not be, tax may not be the biggest, but it will still be paid off first. You're getting a salary, TDS will be done, and then you're left with money. Your PF will go, any other deduction, if you use the canteen, all that will be deducted, and what you get home is the take-home pay. And second, for food, between buying vegetables and cooking and eating out, there is a huge gap. Most of us have realized that during the lockdown, seeing that food made at home is much healthier, better, you're in control compared to what food you buy outside. That food could be more tikka, it could be cold by the time it comes. It has all the disadvantages, but the convenience, saying, okay, when I'm working or doing something else, sitting with friends and talking, it comes nicely in a package. All I have to do is open and eat. So it has got convenience, but it does not have health. It does not have, it is not too great from a content point of view. It is not too great from a, you don't know what has gone into it. That is the content point of view. It will be cold. It could be not perfectly matching to your taste buds, but yes, that will be the second expense. The third expense that you incur, and this you have to link it to the first expense, is the transport cost. Because if you're staying very far away and you are not used to using public transport, then it's going to be very expensive for you to travel to and fro, right? Cities like Mumbai don't look at the distance in terms of kilometers. You'll say, oh, it's only 5.6 kilometers, but it would take you 2 hours, right, during peak traffic. So pitch yourself for a compromise between how much you travel and by what mode of transport you travel. So if your office is here and you are in south, you will travel against the traffic. That's a huge advantage. So if you are in, say, Lower Parel that you're working, you're better off staying in somewhere near South Bombay. It might not be so expensive if you look at some old buildings, 4th floor, you can climb up. It's not so much of a hassle, right? You're young. and it may not be a great building, but you could live there and save some money because you could be traveling against the traffic. That is one thing which you could do. Or you could be traveling, but four of you together, so you don't mind driving down. So you will come, maybe you will leave home at 6:30 in the morning. Compromise on all that. Try to use public transport more than private transport. Try to eat in rather than eat out. If one of your friends can cook, the others can, somebody can buy vegetables, somebody can cook. Honest to God, it's a greater way of doing things, much better way. The others will have to, of course, pull in and say, okay, I will do the clothes and something, so share the work. So that puts away our rent, that puts away our food, that puts away our travel. The next important thing, which is very, very, very important, especially if you're supporting parents and you're supporting a sibling in school, college, whatever, very important to create an emergency fund. What happens if you are incapacitated, or if you are unable to work, or you lose your job, right? All those problems can arise. So creating a small or big emergency fund is very useful for people on whom there are dependents. Now, if your father is the vice president in the bank and your mother is a doctor, or vice versa, you know that they're well provided for. You know that your grandparents are well provided for. You know that in case of an emergency, you can just drop everything and go home, and you will have enough food to eat for the next 2, 3, 5 years. It doesn't really matter. Such kids don't really need too much of an emergency fund, but it is always useful to have, so that in case you have an emergency, you tell your parents, look, I needed 30,000 rupees to solve this, but I had saved this money. They'll feel happy. Now let me turn it around and say, what happens if you're a parent of a kid who is like this? First of all, don't ask too many questions about what he's doing with her money or what she's doing with the money. You have screwed up your money, you have screwed up your life, stay with it. Don't get into kids what they should do with their money unless you really know it. Don't think because you're older you know it, you don't know it. Second, if the kid is staying with you, and the kid is good enough to offer you rent, take it. Don't act so smart that you don't take it. Take it. Let us say there is a husband and wife is a housewife, and the daughter is now saying, Dad, I want to pay 12,000 rupees per month rent. Don't get into, is it commercial rate, is it too high, is it too low? Take that kid's money, put it in your wife's account, and do an SIP with that amount. That's fantastic, because that 12,000 a month can become a good SIP, and 3 years later when she wants to buy a house, or 5 years later when she wants to buy a house, this can be your gift to her, right? So that's a sensible thing to do. And for heaven's sake, don't stop a girl from buying the house saying, oh, we don't know how your husband will react and all that. Far away, boss. If she's 22, she's got another 7-8 years when she's just going to be earning money and having her life. If she wants to buy a house, let her buy a house. Don't give this gender issue. I am anti buying a house. That's completely different from a commercial point of view. But don't give this gender issue. What will your husband think? How will you pay for the next 20 years, 30 years? She knows. She has sorted it out. Let her do it, right? Similarly, if the kids are willing to pay for the food, take it, invest it, keep it. Someday you can give it back to the kid. It's not that you need the money, but it is nice and lovely to see kids making that offer. So if you're a kid, make that offer. If you're a parent, take the offer and invest it, so that one day you're going to give it back to the kid. It's not that. So you have a budget. Now your take home pay is 37,000. You're paying 12,000 as rent. You're paying some 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 for food. You're paying for transport. You've created your emergency fund. That's your budget, right? Now what you can do better is, there are enough apps available. I'm not naming them because I don't use them. Use those apps to track where you're spending, because that will reveal to you that you are eating in very expensive joints, or you're buying t-shirts which you're not using, right? It'll throw the truth on you, because when you don't write down your expenses, your mind tells you, oh, you're all fine. There is absolutely no problem. You're very sensible. But when you do that, you suddenly lose track, and you're saying, oh, my take home pay is 73,000 and I'm unable to save anything. My take home pay is 92,000 and I'm unable to save anything. So it keeps happening. So when your take home pay is the minimum, we are starting, get into this habit of saying, okay, this is the cap on rent, this is the cap on eating out, this is the cap on travel, this is the emergency fund that I've already created, it's lying in the bank, this is the SIP amount that I'm doing. Maybe 5,000 rupees a month, maybe 8,000 rupees a month. Now in the US, there is something called a 401k plan, where if you put 1 rupee, the employer matches it with another 1 rupee, and therefore the money grows. So it's absolutely automatic, and it does not require any brains to say that you should do it. Now if you are a parent, you can duplicate it in India. You tell your kid, if you do an SIP in an index fund or whatever, wherever you want to do, I will match it for you at the end of the year. So if your son or daughter does the 5,000 rupee SIP, it becomes 60,000 rupees at the end of the year. You write out a check and put 60,000 into that fund. You can be the second investor, so you will be able to invest the money, or even better, give the money to your son or daughter and ask them to invest. By matching their contribution, you're doing them a big favor, because you're saying, here, I am giving an incentive for investing, and that's a superb way to start off your kids, because the kid is protected. The kid has put 60,000 rupees, you have put 60,000, the NAV is now 1,20,000, or the value of the fund is 1,20,000. Let's say it falls down to 80,000. Your kid still says, oh, okay, I put only 60, it's worth 80. At no stage will he feel disheartened, and you can slowly remove this subsidy after some time. If you think it is no longer necessary, if he or she has now got used to investing, they will continue investing, right? So getting them into such good habits is useful. Teaching them how to get out of debt, I'm going to do a separate podcast on that, or a video on that, so I'm not talking about it here. Matching their contribution to pay off the debt, all that could be very useful. So use your money to trigger good behavior from kids, but for that, learn what is good behavior and then start doing it. Thank you.